The wind carried ash and smoke through the ruined battlefield. Captain Emily Carter stayed low behind the shattered concrete barrier, her eyes scanning every shadow, every flicker of movement in the burning distance. The world around her no longer felt real. It felt erased. One moment she had been part of a coordinated evacuation mission. The next, everything had collapsed into chaos, communications jammed, vehicles destroyed, and her entire unit scattered like dust in the wind. A distant explosion lit up the horizon again. Boom! The ground trembled beneath her boots. Emily pressed a hand against the rubble to steady herself. Her breathing was controlled, but inside her mind, every instinct was screaming, "Move, move, move." She checked her side pouch again. Bandages, morphine, a small flashlight, and a damaged field radio. Still useless. Static. Only static. "This is not how it ends," she whispered under her breath, forcing her mind to focus. She had been trained for combat zones, yes, but not like this. Not completely alone in enemy-controlled territory where every building could hide a sniper and every shadow could mean death. A faint sound broke her focus. Metal scraping. Emily instantly froze. Her training took over. No panic, no sudden movement. Just observation. From the collapsed remains of a nearby checkpoint, she saw movement. 2 silhouettes. Then 3. Enemy soldiers. They moved carefully, sweeping the area with tactical precision. Flashlights cut through the smoke like knives, searching for anything alive. Emily slowly lowered herself deeper behind the wreckage, her heartbeat steady but heavy. They were close. Too close. One wrong sound, one accidental reflection of light, and she would be exposed. The soldiers spoke in low voices, their language sharp and controlled. Even without understanding every word, Emily understood the intent. They weren't passing through. They were searching. Hunting survivors. Her grip tightened around her sidearm. But she didn't raise it. Not yet. She knew better than to engage a full patrol alone in open terrain. That would be suicide. Her advantage wasn't firepower, it was patience. The soldiers moved closer. 10 meters. 8. 5. Emily could now see the reflection of their flashlights bouncing off the broken concrete around her. Her body stayed still, but her mind was calculating every possibility. Escape routes limited. Cover unstable. Engagement impossible. Then, a radio crackled from one of the enemy soldiers. A sharp command followed. Immediately, the patrol split. 2 moved forward. 1 stayed behind. Emily's eyes narrowed. That was her opening. But before she could move, the radio in her pocket crackled faintly again. A broken transmission. Any surviving Allied units respond. It was her last active link to command. For half a second, hope surged through her chest. She quickly pressed the button. "This is Captain Carter. I'm alive. Eastern sector compromised. Request immediate extraction." Static exploded in her ear. The signal died instantly. And worse, the enemy soldier behind her paused. Head tilted slightly. He had heard it. Emily's heart dropped. "No," she whispered. The soldier raised his hand. A silent signal. And suddenly, the entire patrol stopped moving. Dead quiet. Then, a single command echoed. "Contact confirmed." Everything changed instantly. Flashlights snapped in her direction. Emily didn't wait. She moved. Fast. She rolled out from behind the wreckage, just as bullets tore through the space she had been hiding in seconds earlier. Concrete exploded around her. She sprinted into the ruins, weaving through burning debris, her boots slipping over broken glass and ash-covered ground. Behind her, the battlefield erupted. Gunfire echoed in all directions. She was no longer unseen. She was now the target. "Find her," a voice shouted in the distance. Emily ducked behind a burned-out vehicle, breathing hard but controlled. Her mind was racing. They had her signal. Somehow, even for a moment, her transmission had been intercepted. That meant she wasn't just a survivor anymore. She was a priority target. She checked her surroundings. The area was collapsing into chaos, more patrols converging, searchlights sweeping across buildings, drones humming faintly overhead. This wasn't random pursuit anymore. It was organized containment. They were boxing her in. Emily's eyes narrowed as she analyzed the terrain. North blocked by fire lane. South open field deadly. East enemy movement heavy. West had an old industrial drainage structure, partially collapsed, barely visible under rubble. Risky, but possible. Another explosion rocked the area behind her. She didn't hesitate anymore. Emily broke into a sprint. Bullets snapped past her shoulders, kicking up dust and debris with every step. Her lungs burned. Her legs pushed harder. "Come on," she whispered to herself. A drone whirred overhead, scanning. A spotlight suddenly locked onto her position. Target acquired. Emily dived forward as a burst of gunfire shredded the ground behind her. She rolled into a crater, dirt and dust exploding around her. For a second, silence. Then footsteps. Close. Too close. She looked up. 2 enemy soldiers were approaching the crater. Weapons raised. Flashlights pointed directly at her. Emily raised her pistol. Her hands were steady now. No hesitation. No fear. Just instinct. The first shot rang out. Then another. Both soldiers dropped instantly. Silence returned for a brief moment. Emily exhaled sharply, wiping sweat and dust from her face. But she knew this was only the beginning. More were coming. Far more. She looked toward the industrial drainage tunnel in the distance. Her only chance. She stood up slowly. And as the battlefield lit up behind her in fire and smoke, Captain Emily Carter began running again, deeper into enemy territory, where survival meant becoming invisible or becoming a ghost. The drainage tunnel swallowed Emily Carter the moment she jumped inside. Cold air hit her like a shockwave. The outside world, fire, gunfire, drones, explosions, vanished behind her in seconds, but the silence inside the tunnel was worse. Because silence meant thinking, and thinking meant fear catching up. She landed hard on wet concrete, sliding slightly before catching herself. Her boots splashed into shallow water running through the cracked drainage system. The smell was unbearable, rust, fuel, decay. But she didn't stop. She listened. Above her, the battlefield was still alive. Distant gunfire. Occasional explosions. And something else. Footsteps. Moving above the tunnel line. Tracking. "They're not giving up," she whispered. Emily switched off her flashlight immediately. If she could see them through darkness, they could see her too. Instead, she moved using memory, touch, and instinct, one hand on the tunnel wall, the other gripping her weapon tightly. Then her radio, what was left of it, crackled again. Not static this time. A voice. Cold, controlled, foreign. U.S. survivor detected. Confirm elimination order. Emily froze mid-step. Her entire body went still. They weren't just searching anymore. They were actively tracking her signal signature. Which meant one terrifying thing. This wasn't a random patrol. It was a coordinated extraction hunt, and she was the target. Above her, a metallic sound echoed through the drain grates. Something dropped. Then another. Emily slowly tilted her head upward. Red laser dots flickered across the tunnel ceiling. Thermal scanners. They were mapping the drainage system. She moved instantly, slipping deeper into the tunnel, just as a scanning pulse swept through her previous position. Sector C confirmed movement below, a voice barked above. Seal exits, flush the tunnels. Emily's blood went cold. Flush. That meant gas. Or flooding. Either way, she was being forced out. She moved faster now, boots splashing through water, breath controlled but sharper. The tunnel split ahead into 3 paths. Left, rising slope, possibly surface access. Center, deeper into industrial network. Right, collapse section. She had seconds. Another voice echoed above. Deploying gas units in 90 seconds. Emily chose left. No hesitation. She ran. The tunnel sloped upward sharply, forcing her to climb against wet concrete and broken metal pipes. Her hands scraped against rusted edges, but she didn't slow down. Behind her, she heard the first mechanical hiss. Gas deployment had begun. A pale smoke started seeping into the tunnel system below. Vast. Dense. Deadly. Come on, she muttered. Her lungs were already burning from exhaustion. The tunnel ahead narrowed into a partially blocked exit shaft covered in debris. Emily reached it and shoved her shoulder against the rubble. Nothing moved. Again. Harder. Stone cracked slightly. But not enough. The gas was getting closer. She could hear it now, moving through the water channels, spreading like invisible death. Emily pulled out a small tactical charge from her vest. Last one. She hesitated for half a second, then placed it carefully on the weak point of the debris wall. She backed away. Don't fail me now, she whispered. Boom! The explosion wasn't massive, but it was precise. The blockage shattered inward, revealing a narrow opening to the surface above. Cold air rushed in instantly. Emily climbed through without hesitation, pulling herself out into a ruined alley filled with smoke and debris. She collapsed for half a second, just one breath. Then, gunfire snapped past her head. She rolled instantly behind a burned-out vehicle. They're already here, she whispered. Above, enemy drones hovered between broken buildings. Soldiers were moving in organized formation, sweeping streets, sealing escape routes. This wasn't a search anymore. It was containment. A full-scale net. Emily peeked around the vehicle. 3 soldiers advancing from the left. 2 from the right. 1 drone overhead tracking her heat signature. She was boxed in. Completely. Her mind raced through options, but there were none clean. Then she saw it. Across the street, a collapsed apartment building with a partially intact stairwell leading upward. High ground. Risky. But it broke line of sight. She made her decision in seconds. Emily sprinted. Bullets followed immediately. Glass shattered around her as she crossed the open street. A drone locked onto her instantly. Target moving east. A missile warning chirped faintly. Emily dove into the building entrance just as an explosion tore through the street behind her, blowing debris into the air. She didn't look back. She climbed. Stairs cracked under her weight. Each step was unstable. 1 floor. 2 floors. 3. The building groaned like it was about to collapse at any second. But she kept moving. At the 4th floor, she reached a broken window overlooking the battlefield. Smoke covered everything below. But she could see movement. Enemy units repositioning. Drones scanning. Searchlights sweeping. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was being studied, tracked like prey. And then, her radio crackled again. This time stronger, clearer. A voice broke through. Unidentified survivor, if you can hear this, move to extraction point Delta 7. Emily froze. Repeat, Delta 7 is active. For the first time in hours. Hope flickered. But she didn't answer immediately. Because she knew better now. In this war zone, even hope could be a trap. She looked out at the burning city below. Then at the soldiers moving in perfect coordination. Then at the sky full of drones. And quietly said, "If that's a trap, I'll turn it into their mistake." Emily grabbed her weapon tighter and stepped back into the shadows of the broken building, knowing the hunt had only just begun. The broken building creaked under Emily Carter's weight as she moved deeper into its shadows. Every step echoed faintly through the hollow structure, like the building itself was warning her not to stay. Outside, the battlefield was no longer random chaos. It had become organized silence between bursts of violence. Drones hovered in slow patterns. Soldiers moved in coordinated lines. Searchlights cut through smoke like surgical blades. And somewhere in that controlled destruction, Emily was still being hunted. She crouched behind a collapsed concrete wall inside the 4th floor, listening carefully. Her radio remained in her hand. Delta 7. The signal had repeated itself 3 times. Same tone, same coordinates, same urgency. But Emily wasn't naive anymore. She had already learned one rule in this war. Nothing calling you repeatedly in a war zone is ever safe. Still, she needed answers. She pressed the transmission button lightly. "This is Carter, I read you. Confirm Delta 7 status." Static crackled for a moment. Then a voice returned. "Calm. Too calm. Captain Carter, we thought you were KIA." That sentence alone made her pause. Military protocol never started like that in active combat. Never emotional. Never personal. Emily's grip tightened. "Identify yourself," she said coldly. A short pause followed. Then, "This is Command Relay Unit Sigma. We are authorizing emergency extraction. You are the last confirmed U.S. survivor in sector." Emily closed her eyes for half a second. Last survivor. That hit harder than bullets. But she didn't respond emotionally. She couldn't afford it. "Why Delta 7?" she asked. A brief delay. "Extraction corridor is open. Limited window. You must move now." Outside, a distant explosion shook the building. Dust fell from the ceiling. Emily looked toward the shattered window. The battlefield was shifting again. Enemy units were pulling back from certain zones. That wasn't normal. That wasn't random. That was controlled movement. A trap being shaped. She lowered her voice. "What's the threat level near Delta 7? A longer pause. Then, "Area is contested. Minimal resistance expected." Emily almost laughed. Minimal resistance in a war zone meant one thing. Ambush. She slowly lowered the radio. And that's when she noticed it. A faint blinking light on the device. Not part of her equipment. Not standard military frequency. A hidden relay signal. Her eyes narrowed. Someone had been inside the system. Someone had layered a second channel over her communication. A ghost signal. And it was active. Emily traced it quickly. The origin was Delta 7. It was coming from a different location entirely. Closer. Much closer. Her expression changed instantly. "This isn't extraction," she whispered. "It's bait." At that exact moment, a loud metallic snap echoed from the stairwell. She froze, slowly turned. Footsteps. Multiple. Moving upward. Vast. Organized. Not random patrols. Special unit movement. Emily backed into the room silently, positioning herself behind a fallen cabinet. Her breathing slowed, her focus sharpened. The footsteps stopped on her floor. Then, a voice. "Close. Room clear in Section 4. Proceed." Emily raised her weapon slowly. Her heart didn't panic anymore. It adapted. The door burst open. 2 enemy soldiers entered first, sweeping the room. Then another. Emily moved instantly. 1 shot. Silent suppression round. The first soldier dropped before he could react. Second turned. Too late. Emily struck him with the rifle, disarming him instantly. The third raised his weapon. She kicked it away and slammed him into the wall hard enough to crack the concrete. Silence returned in seconds. Controlled. Efficient. But her eyes didn't relax. Because she knew. This was only the scouting wave. More were coming. And they already knew exactly where she was. She grabbed one of the soldiers' communication devices. It was still active. And what she heard made her blood run cold. Target confirmed inside structure. Begin Phase 2 containment. Phase 2. That meant escalation. She moved quickly to the broken window and looked down. What she saw confirmed everything. The streets below were no longer just patrol routes. They were forming a perimeter, blocking exits, sealing escape routes. This wasn't a hunt anymore. It was a cage being built around her position. Emily whispered. They never planned extraction. Behind her, the captured radio suddenly activated again on its own. A new voice came through. Different tone. Lower. More deliberate. "Captain Carter." Emily turned sharply. The device continued. "You've been reacting to controlled signals since the tunnel." Her eyes narrowed. The voice continued. "Delta 7 was never real, but your survival is." A pause. Then, "You were never meant to escape." Emily's grip tightened. "Who is this?" she demanded. A faint static laugh came through the line. "Someone who understands warfare better than command ever will." Outside, the sound of heavy machinery echoed. Something big was arriving. Armored vehicles. Or worse. The voice returned. "You are currently inside a containment experiment. We are studying adaptive survival response under isolated combat pressure." Emily's face went cold. "This is a live war zone," she said sharply. The voice responded instantly. "No, it's a controlled battlefield." Another pause. Then the final words came through. "And you are our most successful subject." The radio shut off. Dead silence. Emily stood still for a moment, then slowly looked out across the burning battlefield. Everything suddenly made sense. The coordinated movement. The perfect timing of patrols. The fake extraction signal. The controlled pressure. She wasn't just surviving a war. She was inside a system designed to break survivors like her. But instead of fear, something else formed in her eyes. Anger. Controlled. Sharp. Focused. She tightened her grip on her weapon. "If I'm part of your experiment," she whispered, "then I decide how it ends." And she stepped away from the window, straight into the shadows of the collapsing building, where the real war was waiting. The building felt different now. Not abandoned, but watched. Every broken wall, every shattered window, every shadow outside felt like it had a purpose, like the entire battlefield had been reshaped just to trap one person inside it. Captain Emily Carter stood in silence, listening. No gunfire nearby. No shouting soldiers. Only distant machinery moving through the ruined city like a slow, mechanical heartbeat. The experiment had entered its final phase. She knew it, because now everything was quiet. And in war, silence is never peace. It's preparation. Emily slowly moved toward the stairwell again, stepping over the bodies of the 3 soldiers she had taken down earlier. Her face showed no emotion now, only focus, the kind that comes when fear has already been burned out of a person. She checked the captured radio device again. Still dead. No signals. No command. Only the echo of that final message repeating in her mind. You are our most successful subject. She tightened her grip on her weapon. No, she whispered, I'm not your subject. A sudden vibration shook the building. Not an explosion. Not artillery. Something heavier. Mechanical. Outside, the entire street lit up with harsh white floodlights. Emily moved carefully to the broken window and looked down. What she saw made her breath slow, not in fear but calculation. Armored vehicles. Multiple units. But not standard military design. Too clean. Too precise. Too synchronized. They weren't rushing. They were positioning, forming a perfect circle around her building. A containment ring. And in the center of it all, one massive mobile command unit. From its roof, a rotating antenna scanned the entire structure. A voice echoed through hidden speakers placed across the zone. Subject Carter, this is your final compliance window. Exit the structure. You will not be harmed. Emily let out a slow breath, then almost laughed. Harmed, she whispered. You've been trying to kill me for hours. She stepped back from the window. The experiment wasn't just observing her anymore. It was offering surrender, which meant one thing. They needed her alive. For data. For control. For something worse than death. She moved quickly now, deeper into the building's core. The stairwell led down to the lower basement level, half collapsed, flooded in places, unstable but hidden. If she was going to break this system, she needed its nerve center. The basement door groaned as she pushed it open. Cold air rushed out. And something else. Power. Active machinery humming below. Emily descended carefully. Step by step. Water rose around her boots as she entered the lower level. Broken pipes leaked steam into the darkness. Flickering emergency lights revealed old military infrastructure hidden beneath the civilian ruins. This wasn't a building. It was a facility. Her eyes scanned the walls. And then she saw it. Cameras. Dozens of them. All pointing toward her. A slow clap echoed through the basement. Emily froze. A voice spoke from the darkness. Impressive survival duration, Captain Carter. She turned instantly. A man stood near a control console. No uniform. No field gear. Just a clean tactical suit, like he was observing from another world entirely. His expression was calm. Almost satisfied. Emily raised her weapon immediately. Who are you? She demanded. He didn't move. Didn't react to the gun. Instead, he smiled slightly. Observer designation, 09, but you can call me Director Hale. Emily didn't lower her weapon. This isn't war, she said coldly. It's a violation. Hale nodded slowly. Yes, a controlled one. He gestured toward the monitors behind him. Screens lit up instantly. Her movements, her tunnel escape, the building fight, the drone chase, all of it replayed in real time. Like art, like data. Emily's jaw tightened. You turned a battlefield into a lab. Hale stepped closer, still calm. Not a battlefield, a behavioral test environment. He tilted his head slightly. And you exceeded every expectation. Emily's grip tightened on her weapon. End it, she said sharply. Hale sighed. As much as I admire your resilience, we cannot allow termination of the subject yet. Emily's eyes narrowed. Subject. He nodded. Delta 7 was never an extraction point. It was a final stress trigger. If you reached here, you were supposed to surrender, break, or die. A pause. But you did none of those. Silence filled the basement. Only the sound of dripping water and distant machinery. Emily took a slow step forward. You underestimated one thing, she said quietly. Hale raised an eyebrow. And what is that? Emily's eyes sharpened. That I don't belong in your system. Before he could respond, she fired. One precise shot. The control console behind him exploded in sparks. Alarms instantly erupted throughout the facility. Hale stepped back slightly, still composed, but now alert. That was unnecessary, he said. Emily moved fast. She shot the camera systems next. Then the lighting grid. The basement plunged into partial darkness. You wanted data, she said. Her voice echoed through the chaos. Then learn this. She grabbed a nearby explosive charge from a storage rack, hidden military equipment she had just discovered. Hale's expression changed slightly. Forcing system collapse would result in full sector purge, he warned. Emily looked at him directly. That's the point. She activated the charge. And for the first time, Hale stepped back. Wait. BOOM. The explosion tore through the basement infrastructure. Power lines snapped. Monitors shattered. The entire facility began to destabilize. Emily ran. Not away from danger, but through it. Up the stairs. Through collapsing corridors. Past alarms screaming like dying metal. Above ground, the containment ring was already reacting. Vehicles shifting. Troops repositioning. But the system was no longer stable. Because its core was breaking. Emily burst out of the building just as the lower structure collapsed behind her. The night sky was now filled with burning debris. The containment grid was falling apart. Soldiers shouted orders in confusion. Drones lost synchronization. The perfect circle was breaking. And in the center of it all, Emily stood in smoke and fire. Breathing heavily. Alive. Hale's voice came one final time through a broken external speaker. You've destroyed the experiment. Emily looked up toward the remaining surveillance drone hovering above her. But not the war, he finished. Emily raised her weapon slowly. Her voice was calm. Clear. Final. Then I'll survive that too. She fired. The drone fell from the sky in flames. And for the first time since the chaos began, no one was watching her anymore. The system was gone. The experiment was over. But the war outside the experiment was just beginning. Emily Carter turned toward the burning horizon and walked forward, not as a subject, not as a target, but as something else entirely. A ghost that the battlefield could never contain. A legend that couldn't be controlled.